What African countries were called before colonization? The maps were burned first, not the cities, not the kingdoms, the names. Across Africa, entire nations vanished from memory. Not because they never existed, but because someone decided they shouldn't be remembered. Before colonial borders carved the continent into modern states. Before names like Nigeria, Ghana, or Kenya appeared on European maps, these lands were called something else, something older. Some of those names survive in whispers. Others were erased so completely, historians still argue whether they were real at all. And buried beneath deserts, jungles, and shattered stone, the evidence keeps resurfacing. So why were Africa's original names forgotten? And who benefited from their disappearance? The official story sounds simple. European powers arrived, borders were drawn, colonies were named. Then, independence came. But the deeper you look, the stranger it becomes. Because Africa before colonization was not a blank space. It was a continent of empires, trade routes, libraries, astronomers, cities larger than medieval London, and many of them had names the modern world barely remembers. Long before Ghana existed, there was Wagadou, an empire so wealthy. Arab chroniclers describe streets lined with gold traders, a kingdom hidden south of the Sahara, connected to caravans stretching into North Africa and beyond. Yet today, most people have never heard the name. Why? Then there was Kemet, the ancient name for what became Egypt. The Black Land. Not Egypt. Not a Greek word. Kemet, a civilization that measured stars with impossible precision, aligned monuments to celestial events, and built structures modern engineers still debate. But this was only the beginning. Deep in southern Africa, massive stone walls rise from the earth without mortar. Great Zimbabwe. When European explorers first saw the ruins, many refused to believe Africans built them. Some blamed Phoenicians. Others invented lost white civilizations. Anything except the obvious truth. Because accepting the reality meant destroying the colonial myth that Africa had no history. And that myth was extremely useful. Then came the discovery nobody could explain. Ancient maps. Some showed African kingdoms centuries before European arrival. Names erased from classrooms. Empires omitted from textbooks. Songhai, Benin, Kanem-Bornu, Mutapa. Entire worlds reduced to footnotes. Yet travelers who entered these kingdoms described organized governments, universities, military systems, and international diplomacy. So why are their original names almost unknown today? The deeper investigators looked, the more disturbing the pattern became. In Mali, manuscripts hidden for centuries revealed advanced mathematics and astronomy. Thousands of documents survived in secret family collections, protected from invaders, moisture, and fire. Some scholars believe countless others were destroyed, burned during invasions, looted during colonial campaigns, scattered into private collections overseas. History didn't simply disappear, it was dismantled, and the destruction wasn't always violent. Sometimes, it happened with a pen. Colonial officials renamed rivers, renamed kingdoms, renamed entire ethnic nations. Ancient identities were folded into artificial borders, drawn in European conference rooms. Lines cut through languages, through tribes, through histories older than many modern countries. One meeting in Berlin changed Africa forever. No African kings invited, no African empires consulted, just rulers dividing a continent they barely understood. And with every new border, another old name faded. But traces remained. In oral traditions, in forbidden stories, in carvings etched into ruined stone. Some elders still speak names older than the countries around them, names absent from official maps. Then, archaeologists uncovered something unsettling in the Sahara. Buried settlements, ancient rock art, evidence the desert was once green and filled with human civilization. which raises a terrifying possibility. How many African civilizations vanished before written history even began? And if entire cultures disappeared beneath the sands, how many names vanished with them? But perhaps the strangest mystery is this: why does erased history keep repeating? Because every time forgotten African kingdoms are rediscovered, the same reaction follows. Disbelief, resistance, silence. As if the world struggles to accept how advanced some of these civilizations truly were. Even now, artifacts remain locked in foreign museums, sacred objects taken during wars, royal bronzes stolen from burning palaces, pieces of memory scattered across the world. And without memory, identity becomes fragile. Maybe that was the point. Maybe conquering a people was never enough. Maybe their past had to be conquered too. Yet despite centuries of destruction, the old names refuse to die completely. Kush, Aksum, Wagadou, Kemet, Benin, Mutapa, echoes of nations that once dominated trade, science, architecture, and warfare, long before colonial maps ever existed. But one question still remains. If so much history survived after centuries of suppression, how much is still hidden? And what happens if the lost names of Africa reveal a version of history the modern world was never supposed to see? Subscribe if you want the stories buried beneath official history. Lost civilizations or deliberate erasure? Which do you believe?